In our first interesting hand, we pick up Queen Jack suited in the cutoff. This holding is certainly good enough to play from this position. I raise to 30. The button is fellow poker content creator Breno Campello. You can find him documenting his journey on Instagram. You can also find him 3-betting me here to 100. Since we opened in late position, Breno can be re-raising us with a fairly wide range. We've got a hand with a lot of potential. I call for 70 more to see a flop. We're heads up out of position. The flop comes Queen 4-3 with 2 hearts. We've got top pair with an okay kicker, but after getting 3-bet, it's tough to know for best. I check to the pre-flop aggressor. The button quickly makes it down by to 70. This is a very reasonable price that we're getting. There's no benefit in raising because worse hands likely won't be calling and better hands won't be folding. I call to see the turn. The dealer puts out a 7 of diamonds. It's a blank. I check once again. I prefer to see a check back. Instead, the button bets 110. He's throwing so many barrels at us, it's making Donkey Kong jealous. 110 is another small sizing, which is somewhat concerning because it doesn't appear to be a bluff, and we don't beat all that much that he would have 3-bet us with pre-flop and then continued on 2 streets with for value. Still, we can't go anywhere for 110. I call one more time. The river's the 3 of spades, pairing the board. The flush draw misses. I check, really hoping that we don't see a 3rd barrel. The button thankfully checks back. We reveal our top pair. It's the best hand. Breno shows us that he 3-bet and fired on the flop and turn with pocket 9s. I'm surprised that he was willing to bet twice post-flop with 2nd pair on a queen high board, but he thought that he had the best hand.
Went for the double barrel there, huh?
For value.
We get the win and are up a couple hundred. At transfer tables, where we're dealt 6-3 suited in the big blind, the hijack raises to 30. I've been keeping my eye on this table and decided to head over after being tipped off that this particular player is on the wilder side. I'd like to get involved in pots with him. I call for 20 more, even though I wouldn't usually defend the big blind with 6-3 suited versus a hijack raise if I knew that we were up against a solid player. We're heads up out of position. The flop comes 7-5-3 with 2 spades. We've got bottom pair, but more importantly, we've got a straight flush draw. I check to the initial pre-flop raiser with plan to check raising. The hijack disappointingly checks back. He probably doesn't have much. The turn is the 4 of diamonds, giving us the straight. It isn't very hidden though, with 4 cards being out there. We can't allow the opponent to have an opportunity to check back again. I bet 30. The hijack agrees that this is a fair deal for him. He calls. The river is the jack of hearts. It doesn't change anything. I go for the home run, betting 140. It's more than a pot-sized bet. Sometimes I'll do this as a bluff on a board with mostly low cards. It's much better for my range than the opponent's. I need to balance it out by betting large for value as well, even though it might be tough for the hijack to find a call. He apparently believes me less than Lance Armstrong's testimony about not taking PEDs. The hijack calls. I show him the straight that was just 1 suit off from being a straight flush. It's the winner. You never find out what the opponent has. He takes a long time to look at how much our hand connected with the flop and turn before he finally mucks his cards face down. We probably got called extremely light. I wouldn't be shocked if the opponent had a high card hand or a small pair. We get the win to get the stack over $3,000 for the first time today. We're looking to improve upon that though. About an orbit later, we've got ace-jack suited in the small blind. Fairly often when there's no rake, like in 5-10 games throughout Vegas, I'll limp in with a wide range. Ace-jack suited is a hand that we're going to raise every time though. I raised to 40. The big blind is a good European pro. Those guys tend to be aggressive. He 3-bets to 130. I'm not convinced that he's going to have us beat since we're pretty high up in our range, but I want to keep all of his worst hands in. I call for 90 more in an uncomfortable situation, playing out of position in a big pot against a good player. The flop comes 8-7-4 rainbow. We've got very little except 2 overs and some backdoor draws. I check. The big blind isn't letting up. He bets 120. I expected him to c-bet at a high frequency. It's a bit too early to give up at this stage. I call to put up a fight. Any ace, jack, club, 10 or 9 will be good for us. The turn is the 3 of spades. The astute viewers may have noticed that this isn't a card that I mentioned that would help us. I check with intentions of folding if we see another bet. The big blind doesn't give us a chance to find the nearest exit. He checks back knowing that a board with a lot of low cards often won't be good for his 3-bet range, so it'll be tough for him to represent anything too strong. The river is the ace of hearts, giving us top pair, but we could still be beat by a number of combinations that the big blind might have played this way. I check to see what he wants to do. The opponent puts us to the test with a large bet of 400. If he rivered an ace, we're probably not in good shape, and that's minimally what he's representing. we lose to ace king, ace queen, ace 8, ace 7, ace 4, and ace 3. We only beat ace 10, ace 9, ace 6, ace 5, and ace deuce, but the opponent likely would have continued bluffing on the turn with ace 6, ace 5, and ace deuce, since those would all be straight draws. I don't think that he'd go with this sizing with ace 10 or ace 9 either. I'm not even sure that he'd go that big with ace king or ace queen, come to think of it. It feels a lot like the opponent has ace 4 or ace 3, or he has nothing. Against certain players I know to be conservative, I'd strongly consider folding. Against Euro pros, I tend to apply as much pressure as possible. I can't let this go.
Sure, with ace 3 or ace 4 here, it's not going to be fun.
Okay, showdown please. King high.
The opponent tried to bluff us with king 10 offsuit. We had him beat the entire way. The big blind knew that the ace on the river would be better for his range than ours, which is why he fired big, but it was better for our real hand than it was for his trash. We win a big pot. So far, transferring tables has worked out well. We're up close to 1,300 after playing for only about 2 hours. 15 minutes later, we've got pocket queens in the big blind. The button raises to 30. The small blind is the opponent who I suspect might have bluffed us in the previous hand. He 3-bets to 140. I'm not a big fan of cold calling 3-bets. If we call, the button will be getting a great price, and he'll likely call, so we'll be playing a large pot 3 ways out of position. Queens is likely the best hand anyway. After reaching for several black chips, I 4-bet to 400. The button has never felt so defeated in his life. He folds quickly. The small blind isn't nearly as quick to let go. In fact, he might not let go at all. He has 1530 total in his stack. If he jams, we're gonna have to get it all in for about 1100 more. Sometimes we'll be beat, sometimes we'll be flipping, and occasionally we'll be ahead, but most importantly, we'll have a chance to get revenge for that pocket 10s hand earlier. The opponent 5-bet rips it. My gut reaction is to snap call. I slowed down to get an estimated count first, just to make sure that the jam isn't for a lot more than I originally thought. It isn't. I call. The opponent has just one question for me.
Whatever you want to do. Alright, do it twice. Just flip it.
The opponent doesn't want to flip over the cards. We're up against a mystery hand as the flop comes king 10-8 rainbow. It's awful because we're losing against ace king and 10s, which were 2 hands that I was hopeful we'd be up against. We're now really only beating a hand like jacks. The turn is the ace of diamonds, which is another bad one in the rare instances that we're up against an ace-x suited bluff. We basically beat nothing. The river's the 8 of hearts. We finish with 3rd pair. It's looking like we'll need help if we even want to win half of this pot. The second flop is 9-6-4 rainbow. We don't improve. The turn is the 5 of hearts. The river is the 3 of clubs. I'm really hoping that we're up against exactly jacks, but we're not. The opponent finally reveals what he has.
Ace jack. Wow. Good thing we ran it twice.
Now it's a little more clear as to why the opponent was hesitant to flip his cards over earlier. To give you guys an indication of how surprised I am on a scale of 1 to finding out Andre 3000 put out a flute album, I'm about a 7 seeing that the small blind is willing to get it in for 150 big blinds with ace-jack suited. He clearly didn't believe me and got it in bad, but got bailed out by the deck. Luckily, we didn't exactly lose to him again. Still, a tie in this situation feels like a loss, and we need to get even more revenge. The entire table can feel the tension. The very next hand, we've got pocket 9s in the small blind. Our super nemesis is on the button. He raises to 30. The button must be punished, otherwise I won't be able to sleep at night. I 3-bet to 140. The button and I have quite the dynamic going. I don't anticipate seeing a fold after we were 5-bet jammed on light just moments ago. The button calls. We're heads up against the Flog's biggest villain since my ex-girlfriend stole my cat Cosmo almost 6 years ago. The flop comes jack 9 deuce with 2 hearts. We've got middle set and a 3-bet pot against the perfect opponent to wreck. We're absolutely not slow playing against someone that we've got this history with. I grab chips to make about a 200. I'd love it if the button got out of line one more time. He's willing to at least stick around to see the turn. He calls. Perhaps he has a jack or a big draw. The pot is already quite large. The turn is the 7 of diamonds. An unlikely straight gets there, but it isn't too concerning at the moment. The pot has almost $700 in it. The opponent has 1205 total. There are a lot of cards on the river that could cause us to lose or might prevent us from getting paid. Everyone at the table is aware that there's bad blood between us and the button. I do something that I wouldn't necessarily do under normal circumstances, and I go for the maximum. We overbet rip it for almost twice the size of the pot with the hopes that this will look like a bluff with a big draw. I'm Might do something similar with ace 10, king 10, or queen 10 of hearts. The button doesn't immediately make a decision. He's extremely confused by the situation that he's found himself in. The opponent is mostly a silent tanker, but after taking almost 2 minutes to ponder everything, he feels the need to apologize to the table for taking so long.
Sorry guys.
I'm okay with him taking his time, especially if he convinces himself to make the call with a hand that's likely drawing slim at best. The opponent flips over a card and indicates that he's probably drawing stone dead. If the opponent makes the call, this would be incredible because if he doesn't have a straight draw to go with his jack, there's no way that he can win. If he calls, it'll be all over, baby. After 2.5 minutes, the opponent folds one card at a time, leaving his jack of clubs face up so that I can be extra disappointed that we weren't able to win the maximum from top pair. I went for it all, but was perhaps a little avaricious. Greed isn't always good. At least we win several hundred and get some redemption against our arch enemy. Here we've got ace king offsuit under the gun. I raised to 30. 2 doors down from us is Jack Oliver. He got 3rd place in the 2021 WSOP main event for a $3 million payout. Jack 3-bets to 90. He shouldn't be 3-betting light very often. He should have a very narrow range consisting of mostly strong holdings with a lot to have us crushed. We don't necessarily want to 4-bet and play a massive pot against a good pro from out of position or possibly get 5-bet. I call for 60 more to disguise the strength of our hand and see a flop. The dealer puts out Jack 7-4 rainbow. We've got nothing except 2 overs and a backdoor straight draw. I check. Jack isn't going to play nice. He bets 100. Since we under-repped our hand pre-flop, I'm not in a hurry to let go of our cards just yet. I call to see if we can improve. The turn is the 8 of diamonds. We definitely don't improve, but the board connects well with our range as the color of the 3-bet since we can have lots of sets and top pair combos. I check. Jack isn't as eager to bet after getting resistance on the flop. He checks back. The river's the 3 of spades. It's pretty much a blank. Perhaps our ace king is best. It at least has a little showdown value. I check. Jack isn't interested in betting at all. We get the win in a 3-bet pot with no pair. It's not a huge pot. Still, it's nice to win these types of hands when it isn't clear if we're going to be best or not at showdown. I play for a little longer without anything too interesting happening before racking up a nice win.